Hello, thanks for tuning up to our Saturday live stream. It's a rather cold day today, it's very windy, and it's +4, but because of the humidity level, it feels like -2. So today's live stream is gonna be pretty active. I'm gonna walk pretty fast, and I'll be telling you a couple of stories about Odessa's harbor. Here's the Bay of Odessa. The Black Sea makes here a natural bay. Port is quintessential to Odessa's existence. This phrase belongs to one of Odessa's early governors who was here in the very early 1800s, and it's absolutely correct, because this is where the money has been coming from for over 200 years. The natural bay and the advantages of the geographic location were the main reasons why the city was founded on top of the cliff up there. Let me flip the camera. So up there in front of you is the city. That's Odessa's old town. And here's the bay. The first pier of Odessa's port was constructed up there in front of you. Of course, it has been upgraded dozens of times. And I'm standing on the new pier, which was built to accommodate Soviet Black Sea cruises in 1950s. And here's Odessa's beacon, the lighthouse, which is a replica of the original lighthouse, which was destroyed during World War II. This is the Vorontsov lighthouse. Here's a marina, which is usually packed with private yachts and boats during the tourist season. Then in October, most of the yachts are transferred to the Mediterranean. This is one of the most popular city boats. You can rent it for private parties. And this is St. Nicholas Church. There's a very interesting story behind it. In 1993, one of the local priests approached the port's director with an idea to build a St. Nicholas Church in the harbor on the territory of the port, to replace the old church which was destroyed by the Soviets in 1930s. The port director liked the idea. The port's administration gave the money, and 1 year later, on the city's 200-year birthday, this church appeared. And here's a mosaic of Saint Nicholas. Why Saint Nicholas? Because he is a saint of sailors. This is a regular Ukrainian Orthodox church with the services which are being held inside. And here's a cruise boat which operates from April till the end of October. If you want to sail along the coastline for an hour or so, people come here, buy a ticket, and they can do it. And now I'm heading towards the upper pier of the passenger terminal. The phrases in Cyrillic say the passenger terminal, the place where you meet with the stars. And the sunny passenger terminal is waiting for you. Okay, I'm heading up towards the sunny passenger terminal. The bell belongs to the port's museum, and reminds us of the fact that in the old times it was critical for the ship's operations. Before the radio transmitters appeared, that was the only way to send the signals to cargo and passenger ships. And here's the Bay of Odessa. Ticket office. The passenger terminal is waiting for you. And that's where we're heading. On the other side of the bay, let me pull up the view. The tall buildings up there, that's a new district of Odessa. So that's still the city. The city is stretched along the bay. But people come to the old town, to the city center, to work. So this is the first commercial harbor with the wheat silos and also a container terminal. The area behind the yellow cranes is considered the city center, the historical city center. And this spot is also part of the Ports Museum. The cannon belonged to the Odessa coastline battery in the 1800s, and that cannon participated in the Crimean War. In 1850s, there was a Crimean War between the Ottoman Empire, Brits and French on one side, and the Russian Empire on the other side. And a couple of French and British ships sailed into the bay, made a few shots at the city, and this is one of the cannons which participated in the shootings of the Odessa coastline battery. And the anchors. This memorial plaque is to a military commander, to a general who participated in World War II and whose division was part of the city's liberations from the Nazis and Romanians in April 1944. Because the guy was killed in 1944. And this plaque is to the sailors who worked for the Soviet whale shipping fleet, which was based in Odessa. So they were based here, but they sailed all the way down to the Arctic. That's the image of the most famous ship of that whaling fleet, which was named Glory. So the ships were based here, but they sailed all the way down to the Arctic for whale hunting. In the Soviet times, after World War II, the Soviet government established the Black Sea Shipping Company, which was the largest shipping company in all Soviet ports. And this is the second commercial harbor. You see the wheat silos. Wheat is one of the main commodities which is exported from Odessa's port. This statue appeared in the early 2000s, and it symbolizes all families of sailors, women and children who are waiting for their men to come back home. So it symbolizes all families whose men came back home and also whose men were taken by the sea. Locals call it a statue to the she sailor or to the woman sailor. So they're looking at the harbor. That's usually the way the ships sail into the bay, by the lighthouse and then into here. The cruise ships normally dock at this pier. Odessa can accept on average about 3 mid-sized cruise ships simultaneously. And here's the Hotel Odessa. That was a very strange project. In 1990s, after the breakdown of the USSR, somebody got an idea to build a hotel here in the port. According to this idea, travelers who were purchasing the Black Sea cruises would fly here or come here by train, stay in this hotel a couple of nights before embarking on a cruise ship. But in 1990s, the Black Sea Shipping Company came to a complete collapse that included both the cargo shipments and the passenger cruises. So nobody needed the hotel. The hotel was built in 2000. Then gradually, tourism started to pick up, so the occupancy became quite decent. But then in 2011, the hotel was shut down by the government. Rumor says it that there was some conflict of business interest. So it's been standing empty for about 10 years now. And here's the building of the passenger terminal. It was built in 1950s, and it was a very modern project for the Soviet period. It didn't look, and it doesn't look, like an average or typical Soviet building. The architects wanted to design a passenger terminal to resemble a passenger ship. If you look at the balconies, they resemble the decks of a passenger ship. And sort of the shape of the building resembles the shape of a passenger ship. So that was a flagship project in the Black Sea ports. On the top floor in the Soviet times, there was a very posh restaurant. And here's the Viking river cruise boat. Viking does river cruises which connect Kiev and Odessa. Some cruises start in Kiev, sail all the way down the Dnieper River, then along the Black Sea coastline, and then come here for a couple of days. Or the river cruise starts here, then they sail from here to the Dnieper River, then up the river to Kiev. So, but since all cruises were cancelled this year, it's just docked here for the season, for the year. And the old town is up the hill in front of us. That highest rooftop, which you're seeing, belongs to the Opera House, Odessa's iconic site. And here's the building of the passenger terminal. The city was founded 226 years ago, in 1794, up the cliff overlooking the Black Sea harbor. And this location is very convenient for travelers who come to Odessa with Black Sea cruises. The ships dock either here, where you see the Viking boat, or on the other side. Travelers take underground pathway to get from the ship into the passenger terminal. Then they exit the terminal here. This is the facade of the terminal. And the old town with the main sites is in front of them. Actually, the first site which you see is the Potemkin staircase. That's where I'm heading to. And another interesting statue is this one. This is the biggest sculpture of the baby. Here's the baby. The 4-meter sculpture of the baby, which is being born. Locals have very mixed feelings about the sculpture. Some call it a Kinder Surprise, you know, those chocolate eggs with the surprises inside them for children. A very interesting story behind the sculpture. It was made by a Soviet and American sculptor of Jewish origin. The guy was 16 years old when he joined the Red Army in World War II. He was here in Odessa right after its liberation from the Nazis and Romanians in 1944, and was very much impressed by the strong spirit of the locals, who were under the occupation for over 2 years. He brought these memories through his whole life, and 50 years later, when the city was about to celebrate its 200-year birthday, the sculptor created the statue. The sculpture symbolizes something big and positive, like a big child which is being born. A bright future of the free city. That's the vision of the sculptor. The person had very problematic relationships with the Soviet government, was finally allowed to immigrate from the USSR, being Jewish. He went to America, had a studio in New York, so the sculpture in plastic parts was shipped from New York. And then the bronze copy was made in the studio in Kiev and brought here. So Odessa's port is one of the main commercial ports of Ukraine. It's used to export oil and oil products, wheat and grain, wood and metal. And then the country imports fertilizers, different manufactured goods, bananas, from the passenger terminal to get into the city, you need about 15 minutes. The railroad was built specifically to cater to the port. The first railroad appeared in 1860s, and it was a huge thing for the city and for the port because it meant more goods which were brought by the railroad. That original railroad was destroyed in World War II bombings, so this one was built after the war. So the cargo is brought either by the railroad or by huge trucks. This is the road for the trucks. And then the railroad goes all the way down to that harbor, to the other harbor, and to the container terminal. And here's Odessa's legendary site, the Potemkin Staircase, and Primorsky Boulevard on top. Let me turn around and show you the passenger port. So this area where I've been walking was man-made in 1950s. It didn't exist before that. Here was the Black Sea. Let me show you the photograph. Where you see the crossroads, there was a St. Nicholas Church, the original church, which was built in the late 1800s and existed up until 1930s. Then the communists destroyed it when they were fighting against religion. And here's the railroad with the carriages, cargo carriages. The cruise boats. And the city on the other side of the bay. The tall buildings up there are modern apartments, quite expensive because they're new buildings and right in the city center. The biggest cruise ships that we've seen here so far were Cunard's Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth. And when they came here, that was quite spectacular because both ships were pretty much the same height as the Hotel Odessa. And lots of locals came to look at them. They were standing on top of the Potemkin Staircase up there, where you see the statue, looking at the ships docked at the harbor. And then Queen Mary started turning around to sail out of the pier, out of the harbor, and that was also quite spectacular because it occupied all the space from the passenger terminal and from the pier to the yellow cranes. The original St. Nicholas Church was right here. And here's a close-up on the Potemkin Staircase. To get into the city, you have two options. Either to take a funicular or to walk up the staircase. During our tomorrow live stream, I'm gonna walk up the staircase and explore the parks on each side of the staircase. So this is the end of today's live stream. Join me tomorrow on Sunday at 1 p.m. GMT. I'll go live from the Facebook page to walk up the Potemkin steps and to explore the parks on its side. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Bye-bye.